In this lesson, we're going to learn how to add and subtract rational expressions. Let's examine a simple process that you're very familiar with. In order to add fractions, you must have common denominators. Now, you may just find any common denominator like 12, 36, 24. There's lots of denominators that are common, but the least common denominator has to do with the prime factors. So, a long time ago, you probably broke down 6 into a product of primes of 2 times 3. So if I want the denominators to be the same, they have to share the same common factors here. This 1/2 has a factor of 2. It also needs a 3 to be equivalent to the other. If I multiply the denominator by 3, I must also multiply the numerator by 3 because this is a disguised form of 1. I can then rewrite the first fraction as 3, 6 plus 5, 6. And then what do? You keep the denominator and combine the numerators to make this 8 over 6. Of course, from here you learn to reduce your fraction to 4/3. We're going to apply this same idea to rational expressions. So we're going to begin by finding a common denominator and then simplifying. You'll notice that these two expressions have common denominators already. They are both 3r minus 6. So since they have a common denominator, we can just keep the denominator and combine the numerators by combining our like terms. This is addition, which is the easier case. So I have r plus r would be 2r, and then 6 plus 1 would be 7. So 2r plus 7 over 3r minus 6. One of the things you always want to do is check to see if this can be reduced further. Where the denominator does factor into 3 times r minus 2, this does not assist me in canceling any common factors. Please remember to only cancel factors, never terms. So this is my simplified answer. In our second example, we're going to look for a common denominator first. So, my least common denominator here would just be the product of 4 and x minus 1, as there are no shared common factors. So this tells me that I need to multiply the first expression by 4 over 4, and the second expression by x minus 1 over x minus 1. So from here, my new common denominator is 4 times x minus 1, and I'm going to multiply 4 times 6 here for the first expression to get 24. And then I have negative, because this is minus, I think of it as negative 5x times x minus 1. So this would be negative 5x squared plus 5x. Now I'm just going to clean this up a little bit. This would be negative 5x squared plus 5x plus 24. Now, one of the things you would want to also do is check to see if you can factor anything further to potentially then reduce common factors. I have already attempted this numerator and it does not factor. Now, simplified truly means no like terms or parentheses, so I'm going to distribute the denominator to get rid of my parentheses now. And this would be simplified. In the next expression, I'm going to begin by factoring the denominator. This would be 2 times n plus 3. And before I even find my least common denominator, I notice that I can reduce this 4 and this 2. They're factors, not terms. This would reduce to a 1, and this would be a 2. So I actually have 5 over n plus 5 plus 2n over n plus 3. Which is a little bit simpler, so my least common denominator would be the product of those two factors. So I'm going to multiply the left expression by n plus 3 over n plus 3, and the right expression would be times n plus 5 over n plus 5. So I'm going to begin now by writing my new denominator, which would be n plus 3 times n plus 5. And I don't multiply it together until the end in case any of my factors cancel. And this would give me 5n plus 15. So I'm distributing the 5. And now I'm going to distribute the positive 2n, would be plus 2n squared plus 10n. Now I'm going to combine the like terms in my numerator, producing 2n squared plus 15n plus 15. Again, I would try to then factor this numerator, because if it could possibly cancel any factors with n plus 3 and n plus 5, you should do that. I have tried to factor it, and it does not factor any further. It's prime. So to truly simplify this expression, my final answer would be to multiply my denominator factors together to get n squared plus 8n plus 15. This expression is simplified. Letter D, our fourth example. Let's find our common denominator, but in order to identify that, again, I need to factor my numerator and my denominators. And I see the dots pattern. Secondly, it looks like it's x plus 3 and x plus 3. So if you notice, x plus 3, there's one x plus 3 that is a shared factor. So my least common denominator is going to be that shared x plus 3 and then everything else. So I've got an x minus 3, and then I have another x plus 3. So I need to multiply the first expression by the missing x plus 3 to make the denominator have all three factors. To make this denominator have all three factors, I need to multiply by x minus 3 over x minus 3. Okay, so I am going to write out my denominator, x plus 3, another x plus 3, and then x minus 3. So now I will multiply the 4 times x plus 3 here to figure out what this numerator would be. It would be 4x plus 12. And now I'm going to do since this is minus 3, I'm going to distribute negative 3 right here. That will produce negative 3x plus 9. So I'm going to combine my like terms. This would be negative x plus 21 on the top. Now, technically, to simplify the denominator, I should multiply it all together. You should probably check with your facilitator as to his or her expectations of whether it should be all multiplied together. Some facilitators are fine if you leave it when it's like 3 or more factors in a denominator, if you just leave it in factored form, even though it's technically not simplified. If you do need to multiply it together, well, you already know that x plus 3 times x plus 3 was x squared plus 6x plus 9. So to simplify the denominator, you would just have to multiply that by x minus 3 to create, that would be a total of 6 multiplications. So if I distribute x, that would be x cubed plus 6x squared plus 9x. And then I distribute the negative 3 would be minus 3x squared minus 18x minus 27. And I combine all my like terms, just recopy my numerator, combine all my like terms to get negative x plus 21 up top, and the bottom would be x cubed, and then I have a 6x squared minus 3x squared would be plus 3x squared. Now I have a 9x and a negative 18x would be minus 9x, and then minus 27. So this is technically completely simplified. You may just want to ask your facilitator if they're okay with you leaving it the denominator in factored form if it's 3 or more terms. Okay, now let's find our least common denominator. Again, let's start by factoring our denominator here. This one would become y plus 3 times y minus 1, which I can already see is going to be really nice because I have 3 fractions here, but this denominator has a y plus 3, this has a y plus 1. So my least common denominator really only has 2 factors in it. It would be y plus 3 times y minus 1. So I'm going to just space this out a little bit. I'm going to need to multiply this first expression by y minus 1 over y minus 1 so that it has the common denominator. My second expression, which is minus y times y minus 1, that's going to need to be multiplied by y plus 3 over y plus 3 to create a common denominator. And then my last one already has the common denominator, so I can just recopy that as the y squared plus 2 over, I'm going to leave it in the factored form, y plus 3, y minus 1. Okay, so I'm going to do the multiplication. So I'm going to begin by taking this 2 times y minus 1, which would be 2y minus 2. Again, just recopy my denominator quickly, y plus 3 and y minus 1. Next, I am going to take negative y times y plus 3, which would be negative y squared minus 3y. And lastly, I'm just going to recopy the plus y squared plus 2. Now in the numerator, I'm going to combine my like terms. So I see a negative y squared and a positive y squared would cancel. I then have a positive 2y and a negative 3y squared would become negative 1y, negative y, I think I said squared there, but it was not squared. And I have a negative 2 plus 2. So all of this becomes just negative y in the numerator, and my denominator is y plus 3 times y minus 1, and I already knew that this multiplied together was this, so I'm just going to recopy that and save me some thinking. Y squared plus 2y minus 3. Here is my simplified expression. It's time for you to practice.